How is it going, everybody? This is Sean Barnes. I want to welcome you to episode 33 of The Way of the Wolf. On the show today, I'm going to be talking about leading across multiple domains. So the question that I have been receiving in recent weeks and months is, how do you do it? And at first, I kind of would pause and say, well, it's exhausting. Which the truth is, it definitely is. But as I've been reflecting, I've come to realize that there are some tips and tricks and things that I've learned along the way that help me out. And so the intent of this episode is to really talk through some of the things that I've learned. Now, I am still learning. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I do want to share the things that have been helpful for me over the years. The first thing that you need to know is that it's not about you. It has to be about your team and helping them and removing roadblocks for them. Whenever I think about the team that I have in place today, the teams, I should say, that I have in place today, I feel so blessed and so fortunate to be able to work with these experts in their field. You know, there's a quote that comes to mind for me. It's, build the team so strong you don't know who the leader is. I'm comfortable in saying that our teams and what we have done over the years, we definitely espouse that philosophy. Whenever we have our team meetings, we all come together and we're talking about challenges or just updates and everything that's going on. As we do our around the room, every single person, when they get their opportunity to speak, the rest of the team listens. They pause, they take time, they process what they're hearing because they know that that person is the smartest in the room. That person is the expert in their domain. So I think whenever you look at leading multiple teams, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're responsible for running multiple businesses, you have to make sure that you have surrounded yourself with excellence. Now, there are times when you get to pick and build your team from scratch, which is fantastic. Sometimes you do still make bad picks. That's inevitable. On a long enough timeline, when you focus and have a mission that you are set on achieving, and you know what each individual needs to bring to the table, it gives you the opportunity to build an incredibly strong team. That's really what it comes down to, building that team that are experts in their field and ensuring that they are successful. Yes, everyone working well together is important. There are going to be times when people butt heads. People don't always agree. That's to be expected. As long as there is trust, usually things can be worked out and people understand, okay, I'm going to have to give a little bit here, but when the time comes, I will be able to accomplish, or I will be able to push the things that I need to push. So it's kind of an accordion effect where teams will come together, they'll work through challenging times, and they kind of go separate, and then they focus on their own mission, come back. It's kind of back and forth. So having that trust and knowing that everyone's got your back, everyone's looking out for you and all of their peers and their teams, that is very important. So making sure that everybody works well together. While there are going to be times not everybody gets along, that's inevitable, your role as a leader is to make sure that you're able to work through those rocky times together. Which kind of leads me to another point. As a leader, you have to be able to solve problems efficiently and effectively. So whenever I think about my role, I've been with the company that I'm with today for over 8 years. I have strong relationships and trust with all of the senior leadership in the organization. I know how to navigate through all the rivers and pathways and little nooks and crannies of the organization. So if someone on one of my teams is struggling, I know exactly who to go to and exactly how to get things done. I know how to have a conversation with this vice president over here to be able to achieve what we need to achieve, to be able to get something across the finish line. So being able to quickly solve problems and help your team be successful is an important skill and trait that you need to be able to develop. You also need to focus on building the members of your team. Now, I talk through the importance of being surrounded by excellence. We all have our shortcomings or faults. So one of the things that I do, and most of the time they don't know it's occurring, but I will watch very intently and closely, especially during times of high stress or tension. When a team or a leader is being pushed closer and closer to their absolute breaking point, I watch closer and closer. Because for me, I want to see how they handle the stress, how they handle the pressure. I want to be able to identify and know exactly where their breaking point is. Now, that can be risky. It's important that you are comfortable in letting people on your team fail. There's a balance here. You can't let them crash and burn in such a catastrophic way that the business can't function or operate. So there may be times when you've got to step in and help and prevent the failure from occurring, but you do need to make sure that they have the opportunity to fail so that they can learn and grow from those challenging situations. Because once the dust has settled and they've calmed down, then you're able to come in and say, hey, what happened here? Now, you probably already know what happened, but you need them to know what happened. And then you're able to talk through it together to figure out how do you prevent that from occurring in the future. So that all kind of boils down into a few things to focus on when it comes to building and developing the members of your team. That is something that's going to continue to be important because there's actually a book that I like called Multipliers. I can't remember the author off the top of my head. But the concept in the book is basically they started interviewing, and the initial intent behind the study and the book they're writing was trying to identify, hey, there's going to be some leaders that extract the most out of you and then other leaders that just suck you down a drain like a black hole, like a diminisher, basically, I think is the term that they use. But in the book, it talks about how they were interviewing people, and they found it interesting how they would have conversations and somebody would say, oh, this manager over here, they'd get 110% out of me, or they'd get 120% out of me. And at first, they just kind of mark those data points off as anomalous and like, hey, okay, 100% is all you can do. Well, I started to notice a trend of how more and more people would cite that and say, oh, well, this person got 110, 120% out of me. And so then the book talks about, okay, once they dug a little bit deeper, they realized that certain leaders are able to push people above that threshold, that 100% threshold, into new heights of what they hadn't been historically capable of doing. In any event, I think it's important, if you're a big reader, please go look at that book. Incredible, incredible read. So big things, one other thing actually that I wanted to talk on is the importance of being able to effectively communicate. Communication is so key, especially as you progress into more and more senior leadership positions. You have to be able to effectively communicate your message and your vision so that you know everyone on the team is aligned and knows exactly where your head is at. You also have to be able to effectively communicate to solve problems. There will be a lot of times when you have to have crucial conversations. Another good book. And you have to deal with very challenging situations. You have to deal with people that are frustrated, and you have to help them solve their problems. So solving problems, developing your team, effective communication, all key areas that you do need to focus on to be successful in leading across multiple domains. And I think another thing, which I think I may have touched on briefly, is just really building trust. to be able to have a successful team, everyone on the team needs to be able to trust one another. And again, they're not always going to get along, but they do need to trust in one another so that they can work together on solving problems. So those are a few of the things that you do need to focus on. If any of you have goals and aspirations of leading multiple domains, that's fantastic. I always encourage people to become the absolute best in their field first, and then try to branch out. If you want to come into just being a generalist and operating in many, many different functions and domains from the bottom up to the top, it is going to be tricky. It is going to be challenging, at least in my experience. Now, I will openly admit that early on, or for the majority of my career, I wanted to progress through the IT ranks, director of IT, vice president of IT, CIO, and I found myself actually now leading IT and HR and safety and transportation, all these different domains, which I do really enjoy. And then when you look at entrepreneurs, a lot of times they'll start a business, do phenomenal at that business, and then they branch out. So just a few other random thoughts that come to mind. I think it's important for you to keep in mind when you're kind of progressing down that path. I think that's all I've got for the day. I would like to take a moment to thank all of you that have left reviews or marked off 5 stars on the show. For those of you that take that 30, 60 seconds to leave that feedback and provide a little bit of context to what the show is about, I know that's extremely helpful for me and the new listeners. I would ask, if you get any value from this show or any of the others, please share it with friends and family. No advertisements, don't charge anything. I never want to charge anything for it. Really, the intent behind this is just to help people out. So that is really all I've got. Thank you all so much for listening. Go out there, get it done, and y'all have a good one.